On her wedding night, a Roman bride would be carried across the threshold. But what historians rarely explain is what was believed to happen in the hours that followed, and why ancient writers often spoke about it in fragments, almost in code. If you've studied Roman history, you know the surface story, the public ceremony, the joining of hands, the sacrifice to Juno, the bride's white tunic tied with the knot of Hercules, symbols of protection and unity. On the outside, it looks structured, even romantic. Ancient writers often described Roman marriage as sacred, a legal and social bond, celebrated publicly with feasts, neighbors, and ritual blessings. But that was only half the story. Roman weddings were divided into two parts. The first was public, ending at sunset. The second began behind closed doors. And this is where historical accounts become fragmented, cautious, and sometimes deliberately vague. Some sources suggest that what followed wasn't simply a private moment between husband and wife, but a carefully controlled transition enforced by tradition, law, and family presence. The bride being carried across the threshold wasn't just symbolic. It also removed her ability to formally refuse entry under Roman legal customs of the time. Even Roman poets like Catullus describe brides at this stage as trembling, a detail often overlooked in modern retellings of Roman marriage. Inside the household, the bride was not immediately left alone with her husband. In wealthier families, older married women, matroni, were present. Officially, their role was guidance and preparation. Some ancient medical writers hint that this included instruction, rituals of purification, and practices meant to ready the bride for marital life, though the exact nature is inconsistently recorded across surviving texts. Archaeological discoveries from sites like Herculaneum and Pompeii show domestic rooms that suggest structured preparation spaces, with oils, tools, and medical instruments commonly used in Roman households. However, historians debate whether these were strictly medical, symbolic, or ritual in nature. Medical writers such as Soranus of Ephesus do describe premarital guidance for young brides, often framed in terms of health, fertility, and safety in consummation, reflecting how closely Roman medicine, law, and marriage customs were intertwined. Roman marriage law itself required consummation for legal completion, and proof of union often carried legal and social weight. Some ancient legal texts reference disputes where marriages were questioned if completion could not be verified by accepted social standards of the time. Certain Roman poets and moral philosophers hint at tension around these customs, suggesting that marriage was not only a private bond, but also a public institution shaped by duty, lineage, and inheritance. Over time, especially in late antiquity, some writers began questioning these traditions, arguing that fear or coercion had no place in marriage. Philosophers like Musonius Rufus emphasized mutual respect and moral equality, though such views were not always mainstream. By the later Roman Empire, shifting cultural and religious influences gradually changed how marriage was viewed, with increasing emphasis on consent, sanctity, and spiritual union, rather than purely legal completion. Much of what we think we know today comes from fragments, texts that survived censorship, loss, translation, and reinterpretation. Some details may have been exaggerated, misinterpreted, or shaped by later cultural biases. But what remains clear is this: Roman marriage was not just a personal union. It was a deeply structured institution shaped by law, family power, social expectation, and evolving cultural beliefs about authority and duty. And that raises a question historians still debate today. How much of what we call tradition in ancient Rome was ritual, how much was law, and how much was later storytelling layered over reality. Because once you look beyond the ceremony, the story of Roman marriage becomes far more complex than the version we were taught.